So we're less than a week away from the next little piece of Battlefield 2042 news, and DICE is already releasing some answers to some of our questions, and in today's video I want to go over what they've given us, and what I really want to know from them from here, and then some predictions to what we might see on the 22nd of July. So getting started, let's look at the latest blog post. I'm only going to go over the most important information, as a lot of this doesn't seem to cover anything too significant, and they keep on answering questions that have already kind of been answered, or things that we can already figure out. So I think they're clearing a lot of stuff up here, but they also did release some new information. So we're going to go over that information and getting right into it. Firstly, we now know how customizable loadouts work. So each character has a primary, an equipment slot, a secondary slot, and then a throwable. And these are all going to be shared among all the specialists, and then the specialists have obviously their specialist perks. But what's really important here in my opinion is that there is only one equipment slot, meaning that you won't have any self-healing rocket medics. That is really important. I was actually kind of scared that you'd have this super hard meta thing that would get discovered, like let's say McKay with a rocket launcher and a med pack. That would be overpowered, right? But it seems like with one equipment slot you won't be able to make this all killing class. It's going to be a little bit more balanced than that, I think. But I am still a little bit worried that there might be some sort of clearly defined meta, which we will find out. Now, another really important answer we got was to do with the squad specialist limits. It's now confirmed that squads will be able to have more than one type of the same specialist. Does this mean that you'll be able to have a full squad of McKays Spider-Manning around the map? Not sure about that one, but at least we know that you can have more than one of the same type of specialist. We also got some more information on clustering, which is one of the aspects of the game that I'm super excited for. So what we've been told is that clusters are deliberate areas where combat is intended. I think you already see this in smaller form factor in Battlefield 4. If you think of E-Flag Rogue Transmission literally being a TDM map on its own, and it actually plays like this in Conquest as well, or the inside area on Hammerhead basically being its own little Operation Locker type infantry map. In 2042, to capture an area you must control the sector, and sectors will have flags within them, and in order to control the sector you must have all the flags. That is really important. It's not a majority of flags, it is all of the flags. Now another interesting point here is that once you capture one of the flags within a sector, you can actually spawn on it. I have a few thoughts on the system, but to start with, one of the issues I have with Battlefield 4 and even Battlefield 5 is that the spawns are very predictable. An example of this is the attack helicopter on Siege of Shanghai. If you want to farm that vehicle, all you have to do is have your pilot fly over the spawn points and you pre-aim them as the gunner, you're going to get a 100 kill streak, that's easy. Now, you can actually choose which flag you spawn on within a sector in Battlefield 2042, which should allow for some better decision making in deciding where to spawn in a given situation. Let's say you have a tank in a certain area, but you know a different spawn point on a different flag will actually avoid that tank. It's an easy decision to make where you just don't get farmed off a spawn. It'll also make it a bit harder for the vehicle farmer to know exactly where to pre-aim and know where infantry are going to come from if the enemy owns more than one flag. Now another interesting aspect of this is that you can basically spawn on enemy flags. Let's say that the enemy team controls 3 out of 4 of the flags in a sector, you can keep on spawning there and it's going to create really fluid combat because you're going to be able to keep on spawning on this area where the enemy are. That is really good in my opinion, and also kind of, it could also be bad, right? Because on Battlefield 4, right, we're going to go back to Battlefield 4, it's the game I play the most, but you have flags such as Zavod A flag or Zavod F flag or Rogue Transmission E flag as I mentioned before. These are flags where it is extremely hard already to get enemies off them. It is extremely hard to stop enemies from backcapping on these flags because there's so many spots you can hide. Now imagine if the enemy can spawn on that objective when it's almost yours. It could create some extremely long fights over flags, and you might even have situations where your team barely even owns any sectors because they're constantly being contested. This would actually change the dynamic of the game, and you're going to have games won more often than not by who's killing more, and I actually don't mind this. I like killing enemies in Battlefield. This is something I like doing, so I don't have an issue with this, but we'll just have to see how it plays out. I just have a feeling it could be very hard to capture a sector if the enemy can spawn on the flag, even if they only just own one of the flags, right? This system overall just has me really interested. I'm not sure how it's going to change up the Battlefield, but definitely let me know what you guys think it will do in the comments. I'm really interested to hear it. Anyways, moving right along, we've been told that the game will have a larger playable area to cater for dogfighting, which we love to see, and the call-in system was also mentioned. You'll be able to call in vehicles through a tablet interface, and each map and mode has limits to how many vehicles can be called in. You'll also incur a cooldown once you've called something in, so everyone has a chance to use the mechanic. Air vehicles, however, will not be available through call-ins, and you'll need to access them through the deploy screen. Now, this call-in mechanic isn't something I've really spoken about too much because I didn't have a super developed opinion on it at that time when I first heard about it, but after thinking about it for a bit, I do have some opinions. So, the first thing is that Battlefield is an absolutely chaotic game. but within the game you can find these constants, and it makes it much easier to predict the game and play a bit smarter. I really like the controlled chaos of Battlefield. Once you understand the game, a lot of it becomes predictable, but a lot of it is still totally random and chaotic. An example of this is, if I'm a jet pilot, I know the direction of the vehicles, where they're going to come from, right? I know where to expect vehicles to come from. I know when vehicles are going to come, depending on when I kill them and how long they have to spawn. I know a lot of things about the game. I know how many vehicles are going to be on the map at any given time. That kind of stuff is all things that you should take into consideration when you're playing in this game. And having vehicle call-ins is going to really throw that off. Let's say you're a tanker on Siege of Shanghai, you kill both the enemy tanks on the rollout, and then all of a sudden some dude calls in a tank on the top of C Tower, drops that thing on you, hits a rear shot and kills you. In my opinion, that's cheesy. I don't think it's great, but the maps are going to be so massive that I'm sure there'll be some way to kind of let you know what's happening and make it a little bit more of that controlled chaos idea. I really hope that does become a thing, because that is one of the things I love about the game. It's chaotic, but it's predictable. And I don't want to lose too much of that predictability, because that's what lets you play the game at a little bit of a higher level. Anyways, another rant there. We're going to keep moving on. AI soldiers were also mentioned again, and you will not be able to opt out of using them, which is really concerning for me. I was one of the people in the party where I'm saying AI soldiers are fine as long as we can turn them off. We now know that we cannot turn them off. I don't think it's going to be too bad, because they only come into action when the game is not full. However, I just want the option to turn them off. I think it's a good thing. We're always talking about sandbox with this game so far, so give us the sandbox, let us customize as much things as we can. That is what makes Battlefield great. And the final absolutely critical thing we found out was that crossplay is confirmed. And within this system, the latest gen consoles and PC will be playing together, and then the previous gen of consoles will have their own separate servers. This makes sense because, as we know, PC and latest gen has 128 player games, but the previous gen is still restricted to 64. Now, we were also told that PC and console can opt out from playing together, which is great, but hopefully if done right, this won't be necessary and it won't be an issue. The issue that consistently arises with crossplay is the aim assist strength though, and throughout time, it just seems to get stronger and stronger. In other EA titles such as Apex, we see professional PC players literally switching to controller just to abuse the overpowered aim assist. I even have a mate that played Pro Apex, and he experimented with a hybrid input style where he used controller for close range fights and mouse and keyboard for longer distance. The fact that this is even a viable tactic astounds me. I couldn't believe it when he told me, and I really hope they balance this aim assist correctly, because not only does it cheat PC players with what is effectively a legal aimbot. Now, you guys might not like the term legal aimbot, but I heard it in Ender's video, and I've actually heard this before. Some top Modern Warfare players, COD Modern Warfare, once they get their aim on target, they say that they take their finger off the stick and let the game aim for them. How is that not aimbot? The game is aiming for you. That is aimbot. That's exactly what it is. And I really don't like that. I really hope it doesn't exist in Battlefield 2042, because not only does it kind of rip off PC players, but it's also ripping off those really good controller players who put time and effort into mastering their aim, and then they have it matched by some guy who's spent a week on the game and has the aim done for them. That is just not a great thing. I really don't agree with that. And we're not even looking into the other kind of cheaty things that you can do with a controller, such as strike packs, Cronus, Zim, all these extra hardware things that you can buy that will actually give you an advantage. And in my opinion, those things are 100% cheating, but I don't even want to get into it. I kind of regret even giving that any exposure here, but I just hope these things don't hurt gameplay in the new title. Just make sure aim assist it has to be in the game, it has to be decent, but don't make it make up for all the skill that players have worked so hard to obtain. Now, with all that said, what did they miss? I think one of the biggest things that they missed here was the mention of private servers, and I'm going to keep nagging them about private servers until the game comes out, and until I see private servers in the game, to be honest. The developers have constantly dropped the term sandbox wherever it fits, and private servers are one of the most sandbox enabling things in Battlefield. You can create servers with custom experiences and rules such as infantry maps, no explosives, or pistols only servers. It also enables the entire 1v1 scene. I know some players have put more than 5,000 hours into 1v1 dogfighting alone, and it's literally a game within the game. You have things like the competitive scenes of 5v5, 8v8, 10v10, 12v12, 16v16, and even 32v32. All of these are absolutely awesome, and I really hope that Battlefield doesn't let them die. The game has a chance to shine, especially competitively within 2042, and I would say Battlefield is a casual game, but it doesn't mean that the game can't have a competitive format. And of course, my other big question was regarding anti-cheat. We did see a comment where a developer did say that it was extremely important that players have sessions that are free from cheating. Yes, of course it's super important. I've played, 500 something hours of Battlefield 5. It was ruined by cheaters. I couldn't play the game anymore because I got banned from Australian servers, went to Singapore, got cheated on. That is a really, really bad experience, and we already have cheat developers promising cheats on day one of the 2042 beta. And supposedly source code from the game has already been leaked, giving these cheat developers a leg up. I really, really hope this doesn't ruin the game. Just boot up Battlefield 5 if you don't believe me. Go on a Singapore server. Just go on many Singapore servers. They will all have cheaters on them. Every single one will have cheaters on them. This part of the game, anti-cheat, is probably the most important thing that they can work on, especially for regions like Asia. I feel so bad for Asian players, and I've had them complain to me and say that they can't play the game anymore, and I just tell them, you can't do anything about it, man. It sucks. There's nothing you can do, and I feel really, really bad saying that, but it's in the developers' hands. I really, really hope they sort out a very good anti-cheat, because otherwise, I don't know how the game's going to survive. I don't know how the game's going to survive, especially with things like stream sniping cheaters and stuff like that. Imagine being Shroud or Doc or one of those massive streamers trying to play the game against a full lobby of cheaters. It could happen. That could happen. So please, I don't care how you do it. It could be a Valorant kernel level anti-cheat. Just make sure they don't ruin the game like they ruined Battlefield 5. Now going fast forward to July 22nd, we're going to be shown a few things regarding Battlefield 2042, and I'm super excited for those. We're looking at whatever DICE has planned, aka Ripple Effect Studios, and they describe that as a love letter to the fans, along with a 2042 game experience called Hazard Zone. Now, starting with this love letter thing, from what the leaks have been suggesting and how they described it, I believe in the idea of the Battlefield Hub, which is basically a thing where you have access to all your old maps, your old vehicles, weapons, assets, basically everything from the previous titles all in one hub. That sounds really, really cool, and it matches the whole idea of a love letter to fans because the fans are obviously there from previous games. This makes sense. I would actually believe that leak. Now, as for Hazard Zone, I haven't seen any leaks on it, and I have no clue what it could hold. We know that it's not a battle royale, and the timeline of when it was likely developed makes me think it could be an Escape from Tarkov or Tom Clancy Division style loot shooter. It could even be a co-op experience which would take advantage of the new AI mechanics within the game. Personally, none of these options really interest me that much. I would rather the Tarkov style thing, but I'm all for multiplayer, and I really hope it's a competitive game mode. I guess we'll find out though, and let me know in the comments, what do you guys think these two new game modes are going to be? I'm really curious to hear it. I actually have no idea myself. Anyways, that is about it. Remember, if you haven't already entered, I am running a giveaway on Battlefield 2042 Ultimate Edition, which ends at the end of this month. So head down to the description and get entered if you haven't already. And with all that said, I hope you guys have a good one. I'll catch you on the next. Peace.